one of the interesting things is that Bronn in this episode, has seemingly talked to Tyrion because somehow he's giving this advice to Jaime, which could have been off the cuff, but
Right.
also at the end when Podrick becomes Brienne's squire, he gifts him this axe, and he's like, "Oh, Tyrion wants you to have this," and it's like, is Bronn just getting rid of a murder weapon? Like, if Bronn wasn't allowed to see Tyrion, like, how is he gifting him this axe on behalf of Tyrion?
Right.
So, those are questions I have, because I was just like, Bronn seems a little like he might have snuck in. He might have had a little bit of a chat with Tyrion.
Maybe, yeah. Especially considering that we're supposed to believe that when Bronn does visit Tyrion, tell him that he won't represent him as his champion against the Mountain when he calls for trial by combat, that this is meant to be the first time that Tyrion's seen Bronn since being arrested. So I guess I see where your source of confusion comes from. But I think it comes down to the one scene that Bronn does tell Jaime, which is that we asked him, he's like, do you know how our brother, how we met, and he's like, you represented him for his trial by combat at the Eyrie. And he's like, that's only part of it. The only reason why I represented it was because you weren't, because you couldn't be there, because he knew that you would ride day and night. Again, kind of continuing to emphasize, again, it's a thing that I love from this season, that Jaime and Tyrion are like the only two Lannister siblings that like actually do have some genuine care for each other and actually like don't just want to, viciously murder and betray each other. And it leads to, again, a really like heartfelt and touching scene that they share in the jail cell, when they're kind of talking and Jaime's trying to like throw a bunch of compliments his way, and Tyrion's like, oh, well, are we sure it's as good as you make it seem? And Jaime also relays that also in a scene that he had earlier with Cersei, where Cersei is, again, continuing to just devolve into paranoia. Again, Lena Headey's acting this season on fucking point, like, or just the way that she portrays Cersei's combination of her paranoia, her fear, her conniving nature, just the fact that she just doesn't trust anyone. She plays that to a T, and again, how she's able to still make you endeared for that character after all the despicable, awful things that she's done, and just from her sense as a mother, impeccable writing from that sense. And how, like, I really feel bad for Jaime in this sense, where he's got to straddle these two lines between his brother, who he loves and understands is the black sheep of the family, but also doesn't 100% know if his brother actually committed this vicious act or not, and his sister, who is clearly melting down in front of her eyes, but is also his love in, more ways than one, and also who he knows is acting purely out of emotion and not necessarily out of any sense of logic or rationale. So Jaime's got to play this really weird balancing act that he's got right here. And even though he knows that,
I agree with you. So like when he sees Tyrion, basically they play the verbal joust game, and essentially at one point Tyrion's like, I think when Jaime asks like, oh, hey, did you kill Joffrey? And he's like, the Kingslayer brothers, like,
it's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, of course I didn't. And then it's, what does he say? Like in response, it's like, what if I asked you, did you kill this, person?
Right.
He responds, I forgot exactly what it was. But Tyrion makes a big point back at Jaime, and Jaime sort of looks at him like, yeah, you're right,
Right. Well, consistently also reminding Jaime is like, your king or your son, and like he's like, careful, like, again, like that one little sensitive area that is like, yeah, Tyrion obviously knows their dirty little secret, and Jaime is.
He's blunt about it. Like, Tyrion is like, straightforward in the scene, and I think that's one of the things. Is like, and it goes back to the Oberyn stuff, where Oberyn is about speaking straight. And so in this scene, between brothers, they are speaking straight to each other. And I think that's a characteristic that, of some of the powerful people in this world, that respect and speaking realistically and bluntly goes a long way in terms of the actual like honor that people exercise.
Right.
So, and they're allowed to do it. Like they have the ability to do it because they are playing the Game of Thrones in such a way where they are a little bit protected to a certain degree. Like Oberyn is a prince of Dorne. The Lannisters need Dorne, so he's allowed to be blunt. He's allowed to sort of openly seek the Mountain for revenge, because at the end of the day, his brother and his forces are needed to sort of secure the Seven Kingdoms. So like there's certain aspects of the game here that are very interested to see fleshed out even just in a jail cell, in a conversation between these two guys.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And it wraps up with, again, Cersei asked Jaime earlier, besides, asking her to kill Tyrion, which Tyrion, kind of like threw back at him when they were in the jail cell, before also telling him, when Jaime's like, that's where there's going to be a trial. And Tyrion's like, you're an idiot if you think that this is actually going to be a trial. He's like, this is nothing more than a show for both Cersei and Father to condemn me to death, which is something that they've wanted to do for years now, since I was born. And it does lead Jaime to, but Cersei constantly poking and prodding Jaime to go and kill Sansa does make him, finally start to make one right decision to clean up his act, which again has been kind of hinted at and emphasized that, which is that he decides to ultimately entrust the second Valyrian steel sword to Brienne, as well as Podrick and a new set of armor, and tells her to finish what he was ultimately unable to do, which is to go and fulfill her oath to find Lady Catelyn, to find Sansa. He's like, Arya's probably dead, but there's still a chance that Sansa is alive. Find her, bring her home. And Brienne does it.
Yeah. I think this is it's the scene starts with the whole pages about Jaime, and just like the only thing that's really written about him is being the Kingslayer, and Brienne says like that's kind of sad. So I don't know if she says it in those direct words, but it's like it's kind of lame, Jaime, like you need, there's more to your tale. And Jaime sort of agrees. And and the whole point of the show is him redeeming himself away from that Kingslayer name. Like the world won't let him do it, but he has to take action to be able to do so. And I think you're right. Like he's sort of stuck in King's Landing, right, between,
for better or for worse, no matter what he could potentially do to clean up his act, he unfortunately is still stuck in this position that he wants to maintain, this privileged position of as like Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
Yeah, well, he also he's trying to keep his family together. He's trying to keep Tyrion alive. He's trying to keep Cersei to a certain degree like satisfied and like happy. Whatever the case may be. Like I guess in terms of his father, he's trying to stay out of his father's way, but still keep the strength of the family. And he's in the middle of it. And I think, he sees there's no hope for him to leave King's Landing. Like he has to be there to sort of try to broker this, impossible truce between the family. And I think that's one of the reasons why he gives Brienne the sword and says, go out there and do this. Because he realizes that he can't do it. He doesn't have the ability to get away. Like Brienne does. Brienne can go out there and that could be something that she focuses on.
Not to mention getting her also out of the way potentially for like a potential Cersei assassination setup as well.
Exactly.
So he's protecting her as well.
Yeah, and perfect chance for Podrick to escape. And I think the other thing that's great about, all great swords have names, or whatever, that's what they say. And she decides to name it Oathkeeper. This is one of those things where she is, basically, yes, the sword's called Oathkeeper, and she's going to go and she's going to be an extension of Jaime, and she's going to live up to the oath and protect Sansa, at least, the Stark girls, so to speak. So if Brienne succeeds and she does, uphold the oath, by extension, that was because of Jaime, and that will, in essence, maybe this is reading too much into it, but that will change him from the Kingslayer to someone that keeps his oath.
I don't necessarily know. I don't necessarily know if that's reading too much into it, but I do like the idea as far as like, again, because I've read into this scene a lot as far as, what it could potentially mean, but I like that idea of like, again, kind of Jaime like accepting his lot in life, but also maybe more so like projecting some more of the good things that he may want to do that he may have learned last season with his time in Brienne by projecting it onto somebody who doesn't have as much baggage on them as he does ultimately. So now,
but I think this particular sequence of events with Brienne sets up this idea that his story does not just have to be about the Kingslayer, and that the actions that he personally takes, the people that he actually influences, like Brienne, these are going to lead to positive things. And at the end of the day, like something else will be written in those pages.
Yes.
I think it's sort of obviously going through and seeing the entire series, like we know that kind of comes back, but for the most part, I think it's a really good setup, and it really sets up this, a little bit of a sort of a romantic idea in the minds of the audience.
Indeed, as we come to see later on. But so now we cut to the north. We got two major storylines that happen here. Again, two primary setup storylines, but for some gangbusters, resolutions in the midpoint. Next episode, we have Jon, who is training new recruits, some of which include Ollie. He's doing another mock sword fight with Gren in order to, again, trying to prep them as best he can for the wildlings. Thorne comes in, breaks it up. Again, Thorne does not know when to call it quits with Jon. Even when they're at war, he just has to throw shit at Jon every chance that he gets. He doesn't trust Jon. He still thinks that Jon is with the wildlings. He doesn't believe Aemon's claim that Jon is there to help them. And again, he even says it. He's like, go ahead. Give me a reason. Mormont's not here to protect you, again, showing he never liked him from the beginning. But the one thing that is established after the fact, it's a good thing that Thorne has Janos Slynt on his side, is that Thorne is not a politician. Thorne is blunt. Thorne is headstrong. And Thorne, for better or for worse, does believe in the Watch, but he is not a politician, and he does not know how to play the game. But Janos Slynt, dumb as a rock as he is, does have some slight experience in politics in King's Landing, and he sees after the fact, after Thorne, makes his claim, he's like, yeah, you're being a little bit too brash, and Jon is very, very well liked. And he also knows that once they finish up the war, Thorne says, I don't care, we're at war. And he's like, yeah, but we're not going to be at war forever. And when we do, there's going to be a new election for the Lord Commander. And it might be better off.
Well, Aemon's going to push for it, right? He says the old man's going to push for it. So, he's going back to his old ways, right? Of being sort of, this schemer that's trying to cement his, power as like a second in command. And so, the thing that got him sent up to the wall in the first place, he just can't help himself. He's doing the same stuff. And ultimately it didn't work out the first time. And I don't think it's going to work out the second time either.
Yeah, unfortunately, it has become this thing. Yeah, but at the very least for now, it does work because Janos's words do successfully convince Thorne to greenlight the mission. But first, before Jon meets up with Locke, who again has gone completely undercover, almost to the point where he almost fooled you into thinking that he was just another Night's Watch recruit. And what's crazy about that is I had almost the exact same thought process the first time I saw it, because there had been an episode break between when Bolton first sent Locke out in order to find Bran in episode 2, and then we had so much that happened in the last episode between the immediate reaction to Joffrey's death, and now we get back. I almost completely forgot that. I'm like, oh yeah, Locke was sent up to the wall again. Another thing completely original to the show. Again, Locke is not a character that exists in the books at all. Like, there is no sort of Bolton infiltration that happens. Like, a completely original to the show.
I think it's one of those things where it would have been cooler if, he's, he sent back a crow, and it's like, oh, I've got in the Night's Watch. Like, Jon trusts me. All this stuff. Like, there's some a little. It might have been cheesy. It might not have been really necessary. But ultimately, the Locke storyline, he's just sort of gone rogue. Roose promised him some land, and so he comes up here looking for Bran and Rickon. And just sort of ends up dead. And I think later,
weird and random how it turns out.
I think there's a scene later on, like Roose and Ramsay are just like, whatever happened to that Locke guy? It's like, I don't know.
They're like, where'd he go? They kind of just forget about him. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think it's to me, it's almost an unfulfilled storyline. Obviously,
first of many.
I'll correct myself from earlier. I said there's not much of it's not much of an arc. It's not an arc, but it is an arc. It's just not that good of a one. So I think the potential for Locke going up there, like he comes in, he seems like a pretty bad ass fighter, so to speak. And
he shows that out of all the recruits, he actually knows what he's doing with this. He knows how to handle a sword. Makes up some bullshit cockamamie story that Jon completely buys into. Very, very similar to the story that Pip told him originally back in season 1. Again, endearing to him. Again, I even had this written as a note as well, where I'm like, wow, Locke is such a good liar that he even fooled. Hang on, where is it? I'm like, oh yeah, Locke is also an incredible liar like Ramsay. I'm like, wow, Locke is such a good liar that he even fools the audience.
Yeah, no, I think, it's, I don't know why I never picked it up on it before, and watching it today, I'm just like, oh my God, Locke is, he's here. This is him,
yeah.
But the fact is, I think the storyline could have been tied back to the Boltons, a little more, like maybe after Locke gets killed. You know,
What's going on, guys? Dom, the movie nerd of Talkin TV here, and if you like this video, make sure you click the subscribe button and the like button and leave a comment down below. Make sure you keep tuning in for new episodes, which we have going live every Sunday. That's right, every Sunday at 11 a.m. And as always, remember to always watch more fucking movies.